Okay. What's up, everybody? This is Three's a Podcast. Here we have Mr. Pulaski and Evan Rada, and I'm the James. Evan Rada is going to be speaking tonight. He's going to be talking about his experience, people reading, telling us the process of what he went through and just what he had to go through to learn how to people read a little bit better. Anyway, Evan Rada, go ahead.
Hey James, how's it going?
Oh, it's going.
Yeah, yeah. I, I figured tonight I would give everybody kind of a break from the self-improvement stuff because that gets kind of heavy.
Uh-huh.
Um, I figured people might want to, learn some practical skills for, I guess improving their relation to others
Right.
and kind of, how kind of the journey I went through learning to read people as well as I have over the years.
Okay.
Um, I guess a good place to start would probably be back. I started objectively learning the sciences when I was probably about 11 or 12 years old.
Okay.
Because back in that time I was homeschooled and I was doing the private school thing, so I didn't have a
Right.
lot of friends at the time.
Uh-huh.
Um, there's a whole other side and story to that. In case there are any homeschoolers wondering why I wasn't involved in any clubs, but um, basically, I can remember as far back as being about, I guess I'd say about 8 or 9, like third grade was when I was starting to realize I could get a vibe off of people and I could know kind of what their emotional state was at just at any given time
Mm-hmm.
or what the state was of the room. There's
Right.
kind of like a sense.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to get into the science of this later. The
Okay.
reason I've never really talked through this publicly is because I didn't have the science to back it up because it was all subjective.
Right. And
Um, but
this...
base,
Go ahead.
but basically, it would go so far as to the point where um, I would almost feel another person's emotions at times.
Mm-hmm.
It was a very strong, weird connection that I noticed I had
Right.
from a young age.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it actually, I mean, to a point, there was a point where I wasn't even aware of it. I would get pissed off at people for mistreating each other, you
Yes.
know.
Okay. Yeah. I know what you're talking about.
Um, and there were several years, I would say, not until I was well into my teen years that I was even aware that other people didn't understand, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
the emotional impact they're giving people.
Right.
Um, but that was all, of course, pure instinct that I don't know, it was something I was born with.
Mm-hmm.
Um, a few years later, about age 11 or 12, I don't know, I guess I somewhat realized that I had the skill. I didn't know it
Yeah.
was so advanced.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but being someone with ADD that had, I was very socially awkward
Right.
pretty much throughout my entire
Was.
childhood up through. Well, I'm a little
I'm
different
just
now. A
kidding.
little,
I know.
I've
I'm just
improved.
kidding.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I was very socially awkward up until about age 21, 22. Um, I mean, I started improving a little bit after I got out of high school, but that's another story altogether. But I noticed something though when I was around 12 was, sometimes it's just not really on, you know, and I wanted to know how to basically always be able to, I don't know, kind of read a person.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because even not being aware enough to know that it was an advanced talent that I had a knack for,
Right.
I was still aware when it wasn't working, like I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't picking up the signals. So I picked up a book it was actually my father's collection where he had all his books on magic and hypnosis and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So I cracked open this book and learned about basic body language signals and structures and,
Mm-hmm.
um, you know, body positioning, which any basic body language book will teach you these really basically the more obvious outward signals.
Okay.
So I started out small,
Right.
and then of course, I started moving on to things like structure or clusters.
Clusters.
Yeah, body language clusters, which is a bunch of signals, of course, at the same time.
Okay, okay.
You know, because even then you learn the basic obvious signals a person's projecting, and you've only got probably a 30 to 50% chance of being totally accurate just based on body language.
Right.
Because you're looking at one signal.
Okay.
So I eventually moved on to clusters and got really good. I'd say 15 or 16. I was in high school. I had clusters pretty much mastered.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. Would you say that bad? Because
By what? Yeah, I think so.
Because by that point, because Matt was with me through most of this journey. I met him a year after I started this process.
Oh, okay. Okay.
But yeah, so I was getting, I had pretty much mastered what I thought was objective body language and people reading.
Right.
The stuff that I could tell you how I knew what I knew.
Yes.
Which, the only time I would usually show my cards was when I could objectively point out signals.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
The rest of the time
I was gonna say early on when I picked up on this is an interesting thing because what would happen is, and we were pretty young at the time, but Evan would just be like, "Oh, well, that person's actually," especially this is hilarious because this is during the time where it's that time where you're going through puberty and stuff, like you're getting interested in girls, and you have the world of a woman is just completely like alien. You have no idea what a girl's thinking,
right?
And not that Evan's focus was at all on girls, but just the thing was Evan would be like, oh yeah, she's actually like mad, or or like, oh that oh, that girl likes you, that kind of thing. And then or like, oh, that guy seemed nervous. It would be that kind of stuff. And I'd be like, okay, I mean, I don't know what he's talking about, but the thing was, it would come to fruition, be like, oh, that was actually true, or now we know why that guy was anxious. But I don't remember when it got to the point where, Evan, where you started like, you would specifically point out like, this is why he was nervous, because if you pay attention to these things. I don't remember when that had happened.
It wasn't real often. It was mostly whenever you would ask me, you or Caleb.
Yeah.
Because a lot of that happened, it happened occasionally in high school. But a lot of times, and even now, there were things that I would just keep to myself because it was just a vibe and I had no objective proof. And a lot of times it comes, that's something you just have to trust me on. I read a lot of things that I just don't talk about. And a lot of that is because, well, I don't want to start a confrontation for no reason. It's like I might pick up on some douchey thing that I think this certain guy is doing, and it comes to fruition. It's like, well, I'm not going to start a fight with the guy, and I'm not going to start a rumor because I've probably still only got an 80% chance I'm right, 75 to 80%.
Right.
Of course, a lot of that comes now is a lot more objective. There's a lot of other signals I'm looking at besides the vibe the guy's putting off. But say after I got through clusters, I got into things like tonality, language patterns. The way a person would word things would change in different emotional states.
That's some fun stuff.
Because I realized a person will, which a language pattern is just the sequence of words a person uses, or the words they use in different in certain contexts. Everybody's got one that they use primarily. But of course, by this point, I mean, I was into some pretty advanced stuff.
Right.
I would say this was late high school, early college when I studied this stuff. Because there were many, I mean, I've been doing this, 12, 13 years. So that's where I got to the point where I started feeling like I had an authority on people reading, was like I've been studying this on my own for a long time.
Right.
But tonality I didn't study for a long time though, because that for me I just picked up really well, really easily. That's kind of I think that's a lot of the reason why I have the talent for NLP that I have now. Is just for some reason that just kind of worked for me. Was I could pick that up and but then I got to, I'd say the most advanced level I've gotten to with people reading, and that was what they call micro expressions or micro signals.
Yes.
And these are signals that a person can't, everything else a person can fake on that list, pretty much. Besides the overall, even the vibe they're putting out, they can sometimes, if they're good, they can fake it. But micro signals, they are signals that come out between an eighth and a quarter of a second, and it just flashes you.
Oh, okay.
And they are, besides pupil dilation and that kind of stuff, they never lie. You can't fake them.
Sorry, sorry. Did you just imply that you can fake pupil dilation?
You cannot.
You cannot. Okay.
That and micro expressions are the two things a person can't fake in people when you're trying to read them.
Okay. So you're not putting that in the same category as micro expressions. I got you. Okay.
Not in the same category, no.
Okay.
But if you watch any dating video on YouTube where 10 signs she likes you, one of the things they're going to talk about almost every time is pupil dilation.
Okay.
And the reason for that is just because it's very difficult to control. Well, you can't control it. Now, if you're in a brightly lit room, you might not get that signal that you're looking for.
Right.
They might not dilate, but most of the time, somebody, you see something you like, your pupils dilate. Something or someone.
Right.
But no, micro expressions were the biggest challenge for me. And it's taken me, I'd say, since college, I've been trying to master that. Being able to catch them on cue every time.
Oh yeah.
And in fact, I would recommend that anyone starting out on this journey, don't start out with micro expressions, and you don't necessarily need them to be able to read the person.
Right.
I'm
guessing that.
I would start out with, of course, the big, basic, broad. I'd say the older you are, probably the quicker you climb through it, the more objectively you know how people.
Did you say we should start off on bigger, older broads?
The broader symbols that you'll see, or
okay.
The broader expressions you'll see in body language.
I see.
Like body positioning.
I thought you were talking about what type of chicks we should be trying to pick up. My bad.
Well, I can get into that, but
well, this is more body language in general, not necessarily pickup, right? I'm sure we'll get to a part of that. But.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons why it takes me a while in any new group of friends to reveal or talk about my ability to read people, because that's the first question I get asked. Does this person like me? It's like, well, it's like, I've been studying this for several years, and that's, I didn't study all of it just so I could learn if a person likes me.
Right.
But
oh yeah.
Usually though, that's as far as a person wants to go.
Okay.
But anyway, the level I'm at now, I'd say I'm close to getting the micro expression thing down now. But I've reached a point now where, since I've studied NLP and hypnosis and certain things, I have learned to use certain keywords to trigger expressions in people and find out kind of what their opinion is on a particular subject.
Right.
Which is something that I never thought I would achieve, and it's a science that I never thought really it's really not even something that's out there that you can learn at this point. I have yet to see a course on it. It's just something that has been briefly mentioned by different NLP teachers.
Wait, are you talking about saying keywords to get certain expressions out of
Well,
people?
well, you're not really forcing an expression. That's the difference between what I do and what a cold reader will do.
Right. Okay.
Basically, I'll say a word. I'll be talking to them in conversation, and I'll work the word sexy, or I'll work sex, or just different, different subtle words into a sentence. And
Okay.
everybody has an opinion about sex. Okay, positive or negative. So if I say something is better than sex, or something like that,
right,
they're not registering. Subconsciously they're going to register the word, and there's going to be a really quick micro expression, and you can kind of tell somewhat based on that if you're really good, if they have a positive or negative opinion about sex. And the more times you use that trigger word, the more times you get to observe. The problem is not getting caught or sounding obsessed with that word. I'm just using that word because it's one of the biggest trigger words you can use.
Right.
I can literally just say the word sex, and I've got your attention for 5 more minutes. That's how it triggers the subconscious mind.
Right. Okay.
But I mean, if you use more extreme words like the word rape or something, you can look at their micro expression, and you can tell, okay, this person might be a victim, or they know somebody that's a victim.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
But then again, this has been difficult, for me, and I haven't. There's only a few NLP teachers I know that even do any kind of coursework on it. But I'm looking at that. It's probably going to end up being the future of cold reading, honestly. Which, based on, I'm going to say, my 13 years of people reading, on this journey I've been on, I can pretty much objectively say to you that there is no way for you to psychically read a person's entire mind.
Right.
And, I have gone from being someone that is, I was the socially awkward guy. Ironically, the term I use is empath.
Yeah.
And, I didn't use that word until recently because it's more of a new age term.
Really?
And the new age people, and if I go walk up to somebody that subscribes to the new age way of thinking, I use that term because they know what I'm talking about. Like, yeah, I'm an empath. I can read people very well. And,
okay.
and I didn't use that term because the science for empaths didn't exist.
Right. Okay.
It's starting to come out now. But there are people that are naturally inclined to sense emotion. And the ironic thing is, those are the people that are socially awkward and get treated like crap everywhere.
Yeah, they can feel the other emotions, not just read them.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a sense. It is definitely not, and I'll debunk this right now, it is not a reading that somebody's cat died.
Right, yeah, of course.
Or knowing that their grandma used to bake them cookies, or it's never anything like that. It is literally a vibe for the emotion the person is feeling.
Yeah.
And then you may pick up more through conversation or through body language, or
right.
Because there's many of them that do it entirely on a subconscious level and don't know why they're able to do it.
Yeah.
They were born with a natural talent. And what I came to discover recently, like the past year or so, is there was a discovery in neuroscience recently about what they call the mirror neuron. And the mirror neurons are basically your empathy center that allow you to relate to other people.
Okay.
And there are people that have almost none, which is where you get your sociopaths and a lot of your, I don't want to say autistic people, because they can still somewhat relate emotionally. They just don't get social cues.
Yeah.
But your people with Asperger's are lower on the scale. And then you have people that just have this huge amount of mirror neurons that fire off. to the point where they get exhausted and so mentally in social environments because it overwhelms them.
Right.
Because they're taking in all this information from reading everyone around them.
That's what I wanted to figure out. Okay, because I've gone to psychology class at Rose State, and I remember this girl. I was taking like some intermission kind of class. It was like for a week or whatever. But anyway, there's this girl that would come in, and she would like leave the room a lot of the times because she said she felt so much emotion. She could not mentally handle it, and so
yeah. Well, yeah. The interesting thing is,
Sounds like a wimp to me.
About I'd say probably 10, maybe longer than 10 years, probably like 15.
Right.
They discovered that thoughts do actually produce.
Yeah.
We talked about this in the Law of Attraction.
Oh yeah.
Podcast, but your thoughts produce an energy. There's like an electromagnetic field. There's actually a number of them that project from your body.
There's a what? A number of them that project from the body.
Yeah.
That's what they call.
There's one.
That's also.
There's also one from your heart.
Link. Okay.
You go to heartmath.com. They talk a lot about that.
That's linked to pheromones and stuff, right?
Somewhat.
Okay.
But it's basically an 8-foot in diameter electromagnetic field projects from your heart all around your body.
Oh wow! Okay.
That's been measured.
That's the thing
is the instruments have measured it.
Okay.
Otherwise, I wouldn't feel safe even bringing any of this stuff up because it would just be it would be a lot more on the subjective side.
Right. Okay.
But the theory is that these mirror neurons connect with other people's through these fields, and people are able to pick up and build rapport with each other. When they start firing off the same, and they start, you'll notice people mimicking each other's body language and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
It creates this particular type of connection, but it also allows certain people to be able to read people easier.
Right.
But the bane, of course, of all people readers is what I call the emotional override. And it is where your emotions take you to a point where you cannot objectively read the other person.
Wait.
So
you say, "Oh yeah, your emotions get taken over because you're feeling so much from the other person." Correct? Is that what you're?
Not necessarily. Yeah, that's the problem. Is you can confuse your emotions for someone else's sometimes, or the other way around.
Right.
But say you're in a dating context, the other person is into you, but you just can't read them because you're too nervous and your emotions have overridden. They've overridden you.
Right.
So you're getting all the right signals, but you can't objectively read it because you're like, oh my god, maybe I'm screwing this whole thing up. And the other person's looking at you like you're an idiot because why are they freaking out?
Mm-hmm.
Which I think the emotional override hits. I mean, that hits everybody. It's not just an empath thing.
Right.
Because there's some things that are just obvious that everyone can read.
Mm-hmm.
Where I've been in situations where I've had, this friend wants to go and ask this woman out.
Right.
And it's completely obvious and objective that she's into him. Mm-hmm. Right. And I can sit down and I can tell them, and I can point out all the signals and the reasons why. But when it comes down to the actual approach, they get so nervous that it overrides their objective reasoning to do it. Even though they know they can do it, something's blocking them from even trying.
Yeah, okay.
Which, I could do an entire show just on state control alone and how that affects the things that you're able, some of the things you're able to do mentally or emotionally. That's basically it. That would be the anatomy of what an empathic person would be able to do. But what does irritate me is when we look at psychics, because very often this concept gets confused with what a psychic is or what a psychic claims to be.
Can you also go into explaining mentalists as well? To do the psychic.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I don't subscribe to the belief that psychics truly exist. because I was raised by a magician and I've
Mhm.
studied all kinds of mentalism and hypnosis and, of
Right.
course, people reading, which,
Mhm.
and I've reached, it's just an objective reasoning based on how convincing a person can be.
Right. Yeah.
Because, I could go around convincing people I'm psychic and
Mhm.
just basically tell them very little information about themselves, which is what you get with most psychics.
Yeah.
Is
Okay.
you get cold readers. And a cold reader will make a general statement to you
Mhm.
that has an 80 to 90% chance of being accurate because it's just broad.
Yes. Okay.
And then that person, and then you stand there, you convince the person you're predicting things, but they're telling you all the information,
Mhm.
like actually speaking information to you, and you're just expanding off of it.
Yeah.
And you
Okay.
just stay broad. Basically, the person's convincing themselves. That's that's what you get with cold readers.
Mhm. Okay.
Um, and then there are other psychics who convince people they're psychic with no proof at all. There's no evidence.
Mhm.
Like we have pet psychics now. You
Yes.
know, which I actually consider getting a license to be a pet psychic.
Mhm.
Uh, just teach classes just to see how many dumb people I could find because of how stupid. I could not believe how anybody would fall for a scam that retarded.
Yeah.
There's a place here in Wichita that has a resident pet psychic that teaches classes every month,
Mhm.
and
Wow.
I thought it was a joke when I read it. When I read the ad,
Yeah.
you yeah,
Oh,
none,
neat.
I in no way endorse talking to your dead grandma, or
Yes.
you
Okay.
know,
Right. Right. Right.
because a lot of that is people just they know the basic emotional triggers that a person has, and they
Mhm.
again will override your objective reasoning with your emotion,
Right.
and people will just throw money at you when you do that to them.
Yeah.
And none of what you say has to even be true.
Mhm.
It's like I could talk to you and say, oh, you have a like how's your mom?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, of course you have a mother, but it's like, oh, he asked about my mom, she's having a hard time.
Yeah. Okay.
Or something really good happened to your mom. It's like, oh, how'd you know? She just got this promotion.
Yeah. I see what you're
Yeah,
saying.
and
You know,
their key is being vague because all you have to do is be like, I feel like there's someone who's having a real rough time in their life right now. Is there someone that's having a real rough time? It's like that's such a vague thing that anyone can relate to. Like anyone can
yeah,
know someone in their life that's going through a rough time.
yeah. Room of 100 people, there's going to be three,
Mhm.
more
And the
than
good
likely. At least.
and the good like the ones who are really good at it, the cold reading, are the people who know when to take the gamble to be more specific. But I mean, they do this thing all the time where they record. They'll like record psychics, and if you really look back on a psychic thing, they'll ask the people. They'll be like, "Oh my God, she knew so much! I can't believe it." But then when they look back at the tape recordings, it'll be like they'll record the hits and misses. Like anytime the person was whatever they were putting out was right, and it's
Mhm.
like they'll end up saying like a ton of names before they finally land on a name that works. They'll end up saying a lot of letters, but especially if you're someone who wants to believe, you're not paying attention to the misses, you're paying attention to the hits. And then when you leave, you're just remembering all the times that they got something right, and you're like, holy crap. It's like,
Yeah.
but if you
Yeah,
throw enough, shit at the wall, some of it's going to stick eventually. So
Mhm.
yeah.
Yes.
I mean, if you put out an ad, okay, so you have a famous psychic,
Mhm.
or even somebody that's put out an ad on Facebook, and they say we're having the psychic seminar,
Yeah.
you know, and people show up, they're expecting you to be psychic already.
Right.
There's going to be the skeptics. You're
Mhm.
going to have your, what I call, you're going to have your mats in the room
Yeah.
that are going to call BS. They're going
Mhm.
to challenge you at every corner. Well, more than likely, this person can read who's going to be susceptible.
Mhm.
Um, but if you walk in and you have the right authoritative state,
Right.
um,
Right.
where you look legit enough, people are going to buy it. They're already emotionally being drawn to the point where they're willing to believe you. They're already biased toward you.
Mm-hmm.
So the more you can bias that person emotionally towards you being right in that context, the more likely they are to actually believe you're psychic, keep giving you information and buying into what you're doing.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah. Which, again, I think my next show will probably be on state control because it seems like we're kind of going that route right now. But yeah, it's very similar to what I was saying earlier, where people can fake their body language.
Mm-hmm.
Adopting certain positions, even to people that can consciously read body language, will give the other people a vibe. Whatever vibe you're trying to put out, whether it's authoritative or you're trying to seem more confident, or and those people they really can fake it that well.
Yeah.
I mean, I use it on a daily basis to, which, I mean, it's not entirely fake.
Mm-hmm.
If you hold a pose long enough, you will adopt the emotion of the pose that you're in. That's neuroscience. But
yeah, they actually, just an interesting tidbit here. I was reading about a study where they had people put basically they had people do these studies where they forced themselves to smile.
Yeah.
Throughout the day, and they actually turned up these results where it would actually something would actually happen where biologically, where if you're even if you just force yourself into a smile, I think even the way they did it was it's like you could put a pencil in between your upper lip and your nose or whatever.
Yeah.
And if you try to hold that pencil up, it'll make your face smile. And they actually have these studies where it actually did result in the people have feeling more positive and having a better day.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I mean, search power poses by Amy Cuddy. I think it's like a 5-minute TED talk.
Okay.
And it explains that whole concept. And if you hold a pose for say 3 to 5 minutes, you feel that emotion.
Mm-hmm.
State control, I mean, that's become pretty much a staple in my life personally, because I suffered from depression for a long time. Sometimes I need a quick fix, or sometimes I need to be in a certain state of mind for a job interview,
right?
Or or I'm meeting a group of new people and I want to make a good impression. Mm-hmm. Your body language speaks volumes to a person's subconscious. If it's the dumbest person in the world, they can't read body language. Mm-hmm. They will pick it up in their subconscious mind. Which, to a point where I reached that point, studying NLP and people reading, that was something that I've adopted a lot, where when I'm doing something, like influence, I'm trying to make a sale, or I'm doing a job interview.
Right, yeah.
Or I'm trying to get a date, I adopt a specific body language. Mm-hmm. And I will actually begin to feel it. And then it'll do wonders for your confidence in those situations.
Right, yeah.
Because to the point where a lot of times you don't even feel the anxiety that you were feeling about the situation, because you're powering through it. You just have to hold, you hold the body language, and it's something about your what they call the proprioceptive nervous system and your neurology causes you to feel that way. Where you can have your testosterone if you do like the Superman pose for 5 minutes.
Really? Okay.
It can boost your testosterone by 30%.
What?
Hey.
Yeah, and yeah, I'm gonna say because there's just unbelievable sciences that I'm sure they've been out longer than I know.
Yeah.
But this is what got me into NLP, though.
Oh, okay.
Was I don't even use language patterns as much, right, because of how valuable body language is. To the point where they're saying that if you can put out the right vibe and you can read people well enough, if you've gotten a job. when you walk into the interview before you even open your mouth.
Okay. I got you.
Yeah. Yeah. And it, that, of course, that all comes it's less reading people and more being aware of how people are reading you.
Right.
Because if you can adopt the pose and watch another person's body language and just you can watch it change.
Okay.
I've been in situations where a lot of people, the biggest fear when people start doing this consciously is getting caught. I've never gotten caught once. I've been in situations where I've been somewhere and I see somebody, I want to get a woman's number, or I see somebody that I need to impress. I didn't expect them to be there.
Right.
I start the conversation, and usually I'm already if it's a social environment, I'm in a semi-positive state already. Now, before this was a lot more difficult starting out, but
okay.
It's like shoot, I'm not in the right state. Well, I start the conversation, and I slowly start changing my body language, and theirs will start to shift.
Mm-hmm.
And you're literally changing the frame of the conversation while you're doing that.
Right.
And you can actually sit and watch after you've been doing it for a while, their perception of the interaction changing or of you.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. I've had cases where I've done. I'd say when I very first started doing this, I did what I call my rock star state.
Your rock
which
star
is just
state.
it's just the celebrity vibe that I put out at times. And, I listened to like 3-4 hour lecture on this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking, well, this is BS, because it was one of the very first NLP lectures I ever listened to.
Right.
Where I just wanted to get the science. It was when I was working out at a place. I was working nights in McPherson, so I would listen to podcasts all the time and lectures. But anyway, so I'm like, well, this is BS. This is some esoteric, crap. I wanted to learn. It was the time I wanted to learn the language patterns. I was a conspiracy theorist, and I wanted to catch the politicians doing it.
Yeah.
So that was my whole reasoning for getting into NLP. But then I was like, okay, I'll try it out. So, I felt a shift because I was doing this alone in my bedroom first. And I was like, okay, now I'm going to go out.
Yeah.
And I went to Walmart doing the rock star because that entire the metaphor of energy is used a lot. So I'm in this high energy state, and I went to Walmart, and I just got all these people just turning and looking at me and I'm just like, what the hell is going on here?
Yeah.
I was like, you're just one of the weirdest, because there's, you try going, in a negative state, and people notice that too,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I went to Dylan's recently, and I was like just really super pissed off about something. And I'm looking around, people are looking at me in terror. So I was looking at, so when you have a high energy state or a big state like that, everybody's noticing it on a subconscious level.
Right.
But anyway, yeah, I walk into the Walmart, and I've got people looking at me weird. I've got people like getting out of my way, conceding direct. Like, it was like everybody's perception of me completely changed just walking through the Walmart.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the moment where I realized it worked, because I wasn't being an asshole. I was just doing what I normally do.
Right.
But every interaction I had at that point while I was doing that was different than it had normally been.
Yeah. Okay.
And you could argue that it's emotionally biased to say that, but yeah, my emotions were different. I literally felt different and was acting different.
Oh, okay. I got you.
So, but, from that point on, I've, practiced state control as much as possible. I don't leave it on all the time.
Right.
I don't like to do that around, close family and friends, because to them it kind of seems disingenuous, because you do pick it up and the person is acting different a lot.
Yeah.
A lot of the time. Until it's something that you do all the time.
I got you. Yeah.
But But yeah, it's one of those things where people, it really will change your life. When you start adopting those principles. But yeah, I mean, just starting with something as small as reading a person's, body language and verbal cues and that kind of stuff. I've noticed, I give little tips to people when they're having relationship issues.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, okay, well, what do they say? Because a lot of people, they get in these relationships and they're emotionally involved and they lose their ability to read the person for some reason.
Right.
And it's like, well, this is what they said. This is probably what they mean. Because people, they're trying to read each other and they're overthinking everything. It's like, well, she says I never listen and, I'm being an asshole and I made her do all. It's like, well, you don't listen, you don't understand her. And you forced her, and you're forcing her into something that she doesn't want to do.
Yeah.
That's just one. It's not a specific example, but that's, a lot. They'll sit down. You'll have this discussion with your bros about this conversation you had, and a lot of times, I want to say something, but I don't. But it's like you've had everything told to you, and you're overthinking the entire conversation you just had.
Right.
So yeah, people reading is just one of those things I think everybody needs to learn how to do. I think the world would be a better place. I think there'd be a lot less, fist fights, in back alleys over stupid issues,
Yeah.
because you have, minor misunderstanding turns into a fight because two people's values didn't line up and they couldn't communicate that.
Yeah.
But,
wow.
I mean, you get to the point where you can actually read a person's criteria and values. You can understand why instead of getting mad at somebody, you understand that this is why they're doing this behavior. This behavior pisses you off because that doesn't match your value list.
Right. Yeah.
Your checklist. It's annoying to you, but they don't understand that because to them, that's like, the greatest way to treat a person. Once you learn to read that, it's like, okay, now I can communicate that this irritates me instead of this person's trying to be an asshole to me.
Yeah. Right.
Because when you get to a point where you can judge a person by their intentions and not their actions always, because sometimes you do need to judge them by their actions.
Yeah.
But, we judge ourselves by our intentions and other people by their actions. If you could learn how to read another person's intentions and judge them by that, you would have a lot more fulfilling relationships. Because you're not viewing the person as a jerk because they keep doing this thing that pisses you off. You're, oh, well, they're intending to do this. This is what this is to them.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
Anyway, yeah. Anyway, do we have any questions or?
I don't think so. I am curious about you kind of went over mentalism, correct?
More cold reading and psychics.
Okay.
I mean, mentalism is basically magic, so that's kind of a... I don't mean that as a joke. I just mean mentalism is condoned kind of because it's not really cold reading or anything like that. It's just a form of magic.
Well, okay. Go ahead.
Mentalism usually involves a lot of misdirection, similar to a magic trick.
Oh, okay. That's what he means.
Sometimes, and I know I'm touching on a line saying this, but sometimes you have certain verbal cues that are used if you have a two-person act. That's about as much as I can say, but generally, it's understood among magicians that they're doing an effect. I mean, even cold reading is acceptable in some cases, but generally, the problem is it's generally used by fake psychics, and it hasn't been used in legitimate magic in a long time because of the bad rep that it's gotten.
Okay.
Are you talking about mentalism?
Well, yeah, cold reading in mentalism or in a magic
Oh, right.
act,
Okay, I see what you mean.
because
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, it's still used by them, and it's not. I view information as neutral.
Right.
Yeah, and
Information
just
and
to point
power.
out, just to give examples maybe of a difference, by the way, between mentalism and psychics or anything like that is, I think someone who's doing the cold reading stuff is telling you that they can communicate with the dead or telling this, and they're they're lying to people with the intention of trying to have the person not, they're trying to convince this person that they're actually talking to their dead relatives and stuff, which I think is really messed up.
Right.
A mentalist is the same as a magician. Like you know that there's not wizards running around the world.
Yeah.
It's not Harry Potter.
Yeah.
You know that this is a trick, but there's a mutual understanding between the magician and the audience. And mentalism is just a form of magic. So it's
Mhm.
like there was a great mentalist act on America's Got Talent a couple of years back.
Yeah.
I think they called themselves clairvoyant or something.
Mhm. Okay.
And I think they were like really good mentalists.
Mhm.
But they were not doing cold reading. They're not talking to dead relatives.
Right.
But they are using sort of the gimmick of, we're reading your mind. We know what you're going to say, and here's what and so it's very playful. It's not.
Yeah.
And I think
Well,
that's where you could probably find the difference between in where the magic world would endorse it.
Mhm.
yeah. Well, it's similar to, if you ever heard of there's this guy named Special Head, and his whole shtick is that he's this monk, right? And all his magic effects are real, and he's
Okay.
doing, and he's literally doing magic tricks, but has this entire community on the internet that thinks he's become someone with real psychic powers, like he can levitate. And to me, it's hilarious because these are
Yeah,
tricks that I mean, I know a lot of these tricks,
Mhm.
yeah,
and to the point where I've even gotten on the internet and I've told people that he's doing magic tricks. But that aside, the difference between, say a mentalist or an out of the closet psychic
Mhm.
that lets he's doing an effect would be the conflict between, and you'd have to Google these names because I know you don't know who they are. I'm talking to listeners too. Banachek and Uri Geller. Okay.
hmm
Uri Geller is a very talented mentalist
Mhm.
who has sold that he's a real psychic for probably 30, 40 years.
Okay.
The guy's old. He's as old or older than my dad.
Mhm.
And one of his rivals is a man named, I can't remember his first name, but his last name is Banachek. And I've actually met Banachek and kind of talked about this a little bit with him.
Right.
Banachek convinced Harvard that he was a psychic for 3 years. So that's how convincing you can be if you're good at it. They were doing a thorough study on him for 3 years, and he basically told him what he did because he got bored. And
Okay.
so, I even consider him to be probably the greatest mentalist in the world.
Mhm.
And you know, and his stuff is off the charts.
Yeah.
But
he's like a hypnotist, right? Too.
I think
Like
he
he's
might do
really
some
good at.
hypnosis. Um, I've met him on a couple. Well, he's done a couple lectures here in Wichita,
Mhm.
and it was mostly just mentalism and some of the greatest stuff I've ever seen.
Yeah.
But you know, and what I admire about him is he understands the power that he holds over other people,
Mhm.
being that good and having that knowledge.
Right.
Because he could very easily, even though he's admitted he's not a psychic, say,
Mhm.
"Okay, I really was a psychic, guys. and start raking in millions off of people that don't know what he's doing.
Right. Okay.
Because if you're good, you can convince people either way, any time of day, just whenever you want. So someone, so that'd be the general difference. Is you're literally seeing the exact same tricks between him and Uri Geller during almost the exact same time periods.
Right. Okay.
Where one is claiming he's a real psychic, one of them is admitting, what he's doing isn't real. It's a lot. It would be like, I don't know. It's the same parallel as David Copperfield and that guy Special Head I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
They're doing more outward physical illusions.
Okay.
But one of them is still claiming that he's, and if you're, when I ask the question, how do we stop these people? You can't, because there will always be someone dumb enough to pay for your class or send you money or, when there are people there are full-time pet psychics in the world, that there's always going to be someone stupid enough to pay for your material.
Yeah. Okay.
In fact, the dumbest thing though that I've ever seen. This is actually dumber than the pet psychics. Actually, no, I can keep going down the scale of dumb. I'm going to put him at number 3. Okay. I'm going to put Special Head at number 4 and the pet psychics at number 3.
Okay.
Number 2 is this guy in India who was teaching a class on how to levitate.
Yeah.
And there's video of this on YouTube. Okay, he's sitting on this massive pillow, cross-legged.
Yeah.
And he's instructing his so-called students to bounce on their knees and try to stay in the air. So they're sitting cross-legged and they're bouncing themselves up in the air trying to levitate.
Okay.
And he's basically telling them that this would be the equivalent of going to church and hearing that your arm didn't grow back because you didn't believe hard enough, because that's what these people are doing. They're trying to get their psychic energy up high enough to where they can levitate in the air.
Okay. Yes.
You using their terminology.
Yes. Okay.
But the number one dumbest thing I've ever seen is this guy named Bracco. And this guy will walk into a room, stand on a stage, and he stares at you for an hour.
Yeah.
And people just lose their minds.
I know about that guy. Yeah.
It's of course it's a bunch of dumb white people walking into the room and staring at this guy. Okay. And the thing is, he's not even making money at live events. People are paying hundreds or thousands of dollars an hour to have him come out on a webcam and stare at him.
For what? Why?
Because apparently his gaze blesses you, or I don't know. I've even read the ad copy. I don't understand it. But he's exploded. There's just been this trend for several years of this guy coming in on these web call, Skype calls.
Yeah.
Coming to these seminars, and he stands there and stares at people, and you have people breaking down and crying, and they're interviewing people afterwards.
Okay.
Like, oh my God, I felt the spirit of my dead mother, and
what? Okay.
Yeah, like it's the most spiritual experience of my life. I feel so cleansed.
Whoa. I know who you're talking about, by the way. I've seen some videos. Yeah. It's almost comical.
Yeah,
it's hard to take it seriously.
I thought it was a joke when I saw it. I mean, so this guy's better than Jesus Christ and the Buddha combined?
Yeah.
I mean, because those two guys at least had something to say. This guy just stares at you. And these people think he's the greatest spiritual figure they've ever encountered.
Yeah.
So this is the number one stupidest scam anyone could ever fall for. And I mean, honestly, I think I'm in the wrong business. I think I need to get into some sort of retarded psychic business and just, just get rid of all my self-respect and tell my family at least it makes me money.
Yeah.
Because if I could wear a monk robe and stare at people all day, you know, I think I'd be pretty well off. You know, I'd take my $10,000 paycheck and go back to my island, wherever the hell that guy lives.
Yeah.
You know. But actually, you know, I wonder. I might just have to look that guy up, see if I can't get a session with him or something. But yeah, it's
yeah. Wow.
But yeah, the realm of psychics and spirituality has gotten so out of hand that we have those professions that I listed, and people are doing them full time. It's not an isolated thing where there's some guy that makes money doing it sometimes.
Right.
Somehow they got famous, and somehow they've got these loyal followers.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Damn.
Yeah, that's what I've got to say about that.
Wow. Well, that's interesting. And so, like the mentalist category and is lumped in with the cold reading category, and you said is the so I'm going off the experience of mentalism as watching The Mentalist is probably one of my favorite shows that I've seen, and so I'm guessing when I hear a mentalist, I think of a body reading basically, or using certain words to trick you into saying something or to get a reading off you. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I would say mentalist isn't entirely. It's not an entirely inaccurate term.
Okay.
Because most mentalists, I would say, probably go through that training or have that knowledge.
Okay.
They just don't sell themselves as having it.
Right. Okay.
And I when I'm saying mentalist, it's coming from a very specific perspective where kind of within the magic community and like when you hear mentalism, it's sort of just referencing to this specific type of these specific types of magic tricks. But I don't know if that's, you know, but then again, most people who might go see him, it's like, you know, clairvoyant or one of those mentalist shows in that regard,
right,
would probably just think of them as magicians. And so I don't know if that's something that people more within that industry use, or maybe I'm off. Maybe they don't. I mean, Evan would know more about that, but
I'm just going to say that it kind of crosses over.
Okay.
It's not, neither of you are inaccurate.
Okay.
I would say that the reason that show is called The Mentalist is because that's how people think of a mentalist.
Okay.
As being an expert at reading people.
Right.
What's the name of that show? I think it was Psych.
Yes.
Yeah.
Where you have the psychic detective.
Yeah, but he wasn't really psychic.
He's not really psychic.
Yeah.
That show is probably more accurate to what a mentalist would be like.
Okay.
You know, kind of Matt's idea of a mentalist.
Okay.
Yeah. You know, because they're going around, they're producing the evidence and, you know, keeping the gag going.
Right.
But the popular opinion among people that, you know, wouldn't have, you know, the research that Matt has would be, oh, well, they're really good at reading people. Okay. You know, so they have some way of predicting what a person's going to say before they do an effect. Or
okay.
And I guess there is some of that too, though, because that is part of it.
Yeah, and yeah, to an extent, that's true. There are some people that can, you know, if you're looking at, you know, you pick 4 suits of a deck of cards, you can get a profile and think, well, he's probably going to pick this one.
Right.
You know, but it's the 1 in 4 shot.
Okay.
You know, you profile the person, but you don't even have to be right because, well, it's a magic trick. I'm going to leave it at that. So, you know, anytime, you know, a mentalist has a way of fixing anything that he does wrong. You know, any reading he does, you know, he can prepare for something and change directions mid-trick if he's got the skills to do it. Right. If he's trying to do something actually predictive by reading people. But I mean, in cold reading, it is still used in mentalism somewhat,
Oh,
or I would
okay.
say probably more than what I don't know, probably more than what most people realize.
Yeah.
It's just that it's not being used. You could say it's the good cold readers. It's not the dark side.
Yeah. Okay.
Because the dark there is a dark side to cold reading, and it's
Mm.
Psychics,
I
basically.
yeah, I view all information and power as neutral, and it's how it's applied.
Oh, okay.
And cold reading has gotten a very bad rap because of people misusing it.
Mm-hmm.
It was developed by a group of magicians that wanted to create a psychic act,
Oh, okay.
and
That's
there's always
interesting.
a turn in the punch bowl.
Yeah.
There,
Okay.
there, it's just like I don't know. I would compare it to gun owners. You have good gun owners and bad gun owners,
Mm-hmm.
or a gun. Whoever's holding the gun decides what happens with it,
Right.
what the
Okay.
gun's used for.
Okay.
The same thing can be said for NLP, in a lot of instances, different forms of hypnosis. Um, and cold reading could be used for actually reading people.
Okay.
Kind of the example that I used before, where you can use certain language patterns and read a person's micro expressions and pick things up off of them.
Right.
The thing is, you have to be so skilled at doing that
Mm-hmm.
that it would be almost impossible to get enough people to teach a class or sell a book.
Oh, okay.
So they're going to rely on the same tricks as long as it works.
Mm-hmm.
And there's always going to be people dumb enough to fall for it.
Right.
I don't see the psychic business ever dying.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, that's what I have to say about cold reading. It's
Wow. Yeah. No. I mean, go ahead.
Well, you go ahead, because
I was gonna say,
yeah.
yeah. When you brought up this whole topic, I was very curious and into understanding what mentalism was as well. just because I love the show The Mentalist, but I loved everything you had to say about the cold reading, especially too, as far as what that was.
Yeah. Well, to me, cold reading is sometimes a party trick that I do.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm actually not that. I'm surprisingly not very good at cold reading, but
Okay.
it's not something I ever added to all the other stuff that I studied because it just seemed less legit than what I was already doing.
Yeah.
Okay. But anyway,
I was going to say, and maybe this is a way to a question that can maybe be a good question to lead toward the end of the cast here. But how would what's the best place to start? Do you have like any books or videos or something specific, or just like some simple tricks that people could start? Well, not tricks, but you know what I mean. Like, what's the best way to kind of get into this if someone was interested?
I would say if you're looking for a good body language book, God, I can't remember the name of the one I started with. But I mean, there's plenty of things on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
There are plenty of great books out there that you want to start with the very basics and work your way up. There are a lot of people that start with clusters, where you're looking at the whole body and trying to figure out what it was similar to one that Matt had, where it would show an illustration of a person. You wanted to guess what they were thinking, basically. I would recommend starting with at the very bottom, most basic, and looking at each individual signal and what it means. And then you move on, of course, to clusters, where you look at person up and down and see what they're, and after that, you can really learn things like tonality and language patterns in any time. Because that's kind of almost a separate study.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
When it comes to people reading. As far as taking it to the point where you're reading micro expressions,
Right.
I would say I don't know if it's something that everybody can become skilled enough to do,
Right.
I don't say that out of conceit. It's just there are very few people that have reached that level.
Mm-hmm.
You can definitely research them and
Right.
look at what they are and learn their meaning and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as being to the point where you actually catch them very often, or on a regular basis, I would say the chances, I don't know, it would take a lot of discipline to get there.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you want to learn how to use your own body language,
Yeah.
I would recommend studying NLP. A lot of that there are a lot of language patterns in that, but a large part of NLP is which I'll probably talk about this in my next show, is state control and body
Mm-hmm.
language, manipulating your own body language, you know.
Right.
Um,
Okay.
and that's where you'll get most of your language patterns and your
Mm-hmm.
um, not really tonality reading,
Yeah.
but how you use your own, because that's all about using yourself. Um, but yeah, I mean, if you want to study things like tonality, and you're probably gonna have a separate book for everything, but most basic body language books will take you up through clustering. And once you have the clusters right, I would say you're going to start reading people at about, I'm going to say 60 to 80% accuracy.
Okay.
Because the average person doesn't do anything to manipulate their body language. So,
Okay.
yeah, I mean, micro expressions will take you, if you get competent,
Mm-hmm.
probably 80 to 90%, because there's always a margin of error.
Right.
Um, but yeah, I mean, once you've gotten up to the clusters, you're already looking at pupil dilation, eye reading. Um,
Pupil
there will even be
dilation and eye reading.
yeah,
Okay.
and there will be larger, more obvious micro expressions usually studied after you've gotten to the cluster level. But the more minute stuff is just
Mm-hmm.
years of practice. You can learn all about them, but it takes years of practice to even catch them.
Right.
But anyway, yeah.
Cool.
You can start your body language journey on YouTube tonight, or you can pick up a great book on Amazon. I'll look some up and I'll have you put some links in the description maybe later.
Okay.
Since I'm not being real specific to the listeners, but
Yeah. No. No. It'll be okay. Yeah. Okay. Sweet.
yeah, that's that.
Sweet. Yeah. All right, man. We're through with our final thoughts because I think Matt gave his, right.
I would just like to say, I'll end on this, or not end, but my final thing to say is, I remember one time around that time, 13, 14, I was reading a book on body language,
Yeah.
and I was excited about it, and I was talking to Evan, and I was like, yeah, man, I was reading all this cool stuff like this and that, and I was like, one cool thing that I read was, like if you're talking to someone and their feet are pointed away from you, like their feet are pointed toward the exit,
Yeah.
that means that they want to leave. They don't want to talk to you. And he
Uh
goes, yeah, well, you don't need a fucking book to figure that out.
huh.
And I will always remember that. I don't know why, but it's just a thing. So anyway, I know that's a little bit of a goof, but
No, it's cool. It's cool. Yeah. Well, yeah. Thank you, Evan. I really appreciate it. It was a lot of information, but I was glad to hear what you had to say, and a lot of it was very interesting, especially when you were talking about you were doing something intentionally versus subconsciously, like before you got into actually reading books and other things about the body reading and stuff like that. So, but all right, guys. Well, this has been Three's a Podcast, and Evan Rada was the one teaching on body reading and stuff like that. All the links will be in the description below for all of his stuff, and you can go to his email and ask him questions and stuff like that, and he'll try to answer them as best he can. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.